All right, so Dennis, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Dennis. So first of all, I'm going to tell you that I am entirely envious of his career to date. It is pretty amazing. So he started at a company called Karmaloop. And I think Dennis could say he's steeped in all things hip and cool, although I may be showing my age just using the term hip and cool. Because Karmaloop is like a streetwear company, was a startup.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, and you were an intern there, and the company was about $1 million a year.
Yep, there were mice running through the office.
Yep. And you guys grew really, really fast.
Yeah, super quick.
And got to work with people like P. Diddy and Revolt, and took the company in just a few years to $200 million a year, where you became the director of marketing. So I'd love to just share with the group here, like some of the things you learned through that journey and like what that was like, just growing that quickly and then having to bring in all these partners and really learn on your feet.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Working at Karmaloop was super interesting. Obviously, my passion, I have Jordans on, of course. Very into sneakers, clothing, all the above. So Karmaloop was an online retailer I discovered. Placed an order. It showed up at my house the next day. I was like, wait, how is this possible? And it was based out of Boston, which I was super surprised at because that type of fashion is pretty native to California for the most part in terms of streetwear, surf, and skate culture. So that was pretty cool. So I did my research, found out they had this rep program, signed up for it. Basically what you do is you get a code, you give it out to your friends, they get a discount, you get cash. As a broke college kid, I was like, yeah, this sounds amazing. Let me actually work on this. Started earning like $50, $100, $200. Then I was getting like $300 a month in free clothes, and I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. So Greg, who was the CEO, called me up, and he was like, hey, you should come in and intern. I was like, that'd be amazing. What do I wear? A suit? He's like, no, it's like a total mess here. No, I'm just kidding. But it was...
There were mice.
Yeah,
Don't wear a suit around the mice.
Yeah, no, it was awesome, though. And started off, we had about $1 million in sales, a dozen employees. By the time I left, over 5 years, marketing director, we were working on a cable network with Pharrell Williams as our creative director, which was pretty cool. We didn't end up getting it. At that time, we were going into these meetings, and cable executives were like, oh, Pharrell's your creative director. We loved him in Step Brothers. And I was like, yeah, we're screwed. We're not gonna. So a little bit too far ahead of our time before Pharrell had all his songs with Robin Thicke and all that. But it was an amazing time. Worked with over 500 different brands. And really, it was during the time when like social started. Signing up for a Twitter account, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. So it was really exciting.
Very cool. And, I think it speaks to the fact that you kind of personally were interested in these things and then ended up pursuing a career in them. And I know, over the years you ended up at Nike and working with Musa at Nike and shared with me some really great stories about that. And I'd love for you to share with the group a little bit about kind of what your role was at Nike, because we're going to talk about that in more detail and share some examples.
Sure. So I was in charge of global digital for Nike Sportswear. Basically, Nike Sportswear is the biggest grossing category at Nike. Has to do with all of retro sneakers, innovation apparel. Basically what I did was oversaw all the digital marketing for that category, which was crazy and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Kind of a dream job, to be honest with you.
Yes. So hip and cool, pretty much defined here. And I think you being interested in this stuff yourself, you also are a bit of a creator and created a Twitter or an Instagram account, that is actually Outfit Grid, where you use the hashtag Outfit Grid, which if you guys look at Instagram, I think you were very early on this trend, but, laying items, products, outfits out into a grid and taking a photo of it became a huge trend. And now you're nearing 700,000 followers.
Yeah, 700.
Which is just your personal passion project.
Yeah, it was just something fun. Like one day, 3 years ago, I just put my clothes on the floor and took a photo, which, sounds really innovative. But, other people started doing it and tagging me in their photos, and I was like, oh, this could be something. So trademarked it, got the website, started doing Outfit Grid, and every day, basically, it's a consumer-generated page where I actually don't produce any of the content. It's all user generated. I basically go through the hashtag, pick my favorite one every day, and highlight that community member. But it's grown insanely popular over the past few years, and everyone that's a part of it is super, super cool.
That's awesome. So it all kind of comes together, hip and cool. You're a creator, passionate about what you do, work with awesome brands like Nike, and then you end up at Twitter's agency Niche, which is basically doing all those things in unison together. So super exciting. I'm sure you're loving your time there.
It's awesome. Yeah, Niche is fantastic. Tyler's here today from our brand strategy side. He's amazing. Niche is fantastic. We're technically not an agency. We're a platform. We were acquired by Twitter a little over a year ago. I joined the team in August from Nike, and basically what we do is two things: social media analytics for creators, so creators can sign up, get a sense of how their posts are performing, their total reach, things of that nature. Any one of you can sign up, niche.co, super easy to do. You just authenticate your networks, and it creates a profile for you. And then the other piece, obviously the more interesting and sexy piece, is the monetization. So we work with all different kinds of brands, Fortune 500, to create content on social media, and we are platform agnostic, despite the fact that we are acquired by Twitter. But we work on every platform.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to move into kind of some questions I have for you. And I think it's really interesting. You know, we were talking about what you do, and the social and digital world moves so fast right now, right? And you have to be able to create content at the speed of the conversation to really stay relevant. So how have you, through all those experiences you've had, really moved to stay relevant, create content quickly? I think Ruth talked about, you know, being iterative and innovating versus just like going into product development, and I'd love to hear more from how you've done that.
Totally. Yeah, the benefit of working with creators is that creators are really on top of trends. They know what's up. Like, they're never gonna post something. Like, a creator isn't gonna do a damn Daniel video right now. Like, that's not gonna happen. They're very, very cautious, very like mindful of what they're posting. Everything is very carefully curated. They're also, on the other side, making trends themselves. Like Marcus Johns, who's one of our top creators, did a Vine where he's smiling and playing a song, and basically that took off, and then thousands of consumers posted their own, and it's really become kind of its own trend in itself, which is pretty cool. I know you guys have heard of Starbucks. I think I tripped over about 3 of them on my walk across the street, which was pretty amazing. They actually, if you follow Matt Cutchell on Snapchat, I believe his handle's itboymatt, but he is doing a takeover for Starbucks Rewards right now, and he has some amazing content. It's basically a sitcom on Snapchat, which is really cool and innovative, and I think that's basically a trend he's creating himself on behalf of a brand.
So really bringing in these creators allows you to think differently than you might think otherwise, create content that maybe the brand isn't, familiar with creating or comfortable with. But I know there's a lot of brand people here, how do brands sort of, as a best practice, work with these people to ensure they don't create something that could damage the brand or be seen as completely off-brand that would get approved by executives?
Totally. We actually, when you think about creators as transactional, that's when you're not going to get good results. We work with creators as partners. We're a creator-first platform. The brands that we work with, we explain that vision to them. A lot of the brands we work with are very forward-thinking in that process. They look at creators as partners as well. Some amazing examples, Amazon. I know you guys are present here today. Amazon has been amazing. We did a campaign around the Super Bowl and also around the Final Four, where we had clients actually in the field working with the creatives on the ground, the creators on the ground, basically ensuring that the content is on brand but also authentic to the creator and like moving at the speed of real time, basically, without having to have like emails back and forth or text or here's a playbook, make sure you adhere to this. Being in the field makes a world of a difference, and the content definitely speaks for itself.
So the brand's got to get out of the office.
Yeah, and it's a good excuse. Who doesn't want to go to the Super Bowl or the Final Four? I mean,
It sounds like hard work. I don't know. Can we convince you guys to do that? Maybe. All right. So one of the other things I thought was really interesting, and we talked about this a little bit, is the global nature of both niche as well as Nike and the roles you've had. And, when you're working with creators in a global environment, sort of what's your approach? Do you pick one big global influencer that has pull across all the channels, or do you try to go more micro and sort of create pockets that are really relevant to different cultures in different areas?
Yeah, the key to success, in my opinion, has been creating content that's language agnostic and really creating content that's symbolic and universally understood. Coca-Cola, for example, we actually did a big campaign in Brazil, and the content was created by creators. One was based out of Wales, and the other was based out of Minnesota, and it was for a campaign in Brazil. So the content was iconic. They were both stop motion creators, artists, and one of them painted something. The other one did an amazing stop motion piece. Those artists' name are Go Ree and D Schwen. If you're interested in following them, highly recommended. But yeah, and then similarly at Nike, same thing. Like, as I mentioned, I was in charge of global, so we had a lot of basically all of our campaigns affected all 6 geos that we were in. And it was key to making content that basically everyone could understand. Yeah.
So create universally. I like that. All right. So I'm keeping an eye on our time here, and I want to leave a few minutes for these guys to ask you some questions too. But I wanted to give you, and I think you've already mentioned a couple great takeaways. I wanted to give you guys a couple of creators. We talk about listen, create, share, and listen being a key part of that, right? Listening involves following these people and actually looking at what they're making so that you can create effectively. So I've asked Dennis to share 3 examples to us, and because Niche is owned by Twitter, we're going to tweet the links to both the profiles as well as the examples out. So if you're following Ayzenberg Twitter, you can just pick them up there. But do you want to share those creators with us?
Yeah, sure. The first one was Zach King for Comcast for their Xfinity X1 box. It was actually shot at Tyler's house in his apartment, which is pretty funny. But yeah, there's popcorn everywhere in his couch still, I think. But you'll appreciate that. Zach's an amazing. I'm sure some of you have heard of him. Zach King.
He's been at our summit before. He's fantastic.
So there you go. He's fantastic. He's probably the top magician on social media. So Zach's fantastic. Another example is Robbie Ayala, who's actually a part of Niche and on my team based out of New York. And that tweet is his work for HP, their Bend the Rules campaign, which I'm sure some of you are also familiar with as well, which was an amazing campaign. And basically, it shows kind of how the laptop flips into a tablet, and basically he's snapping a laptop in half, trying to replicate the
And that
tablet,
campaign
yeah.
actually was one of the first times creators' vines were taken and made into a national TV spot. Correct?
Yeah, HP's amazing in that regard, in the sense that they kind of flipped the model on its head, and they basically took vines from our campaigns and made it into a TV spot, and it performed so well that we actually ended up doing a second one, which was awesome. So HP has been really innovative in that space.
Awesome. All right. Did you have one more for us?
Yes, and then the last one, I believe, was Clau Mora,
Yes.
who is a stop-motion artist out of Mexico, and she made an amazing piece for Lancome. Basically, it's an illustration that kind of develops and shows the different tones of makeup applied to her face, and it's really beautiful. You should definitely check that one out.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
My
All right,
pleasure.
let's open it up to questions, and I think Jim's got a mic.
Yeah, any questions out here?
We've got
Right
some
up there.
over
Okay.
here. Sorry, Jim.
Hi, I'm Aaron LeMay. First question is, what are you really excited about right now on the cusp of innovation and just how everything is?
Yes, great question. Super excited about live right now. I know that's kind of a buzzword. I don't want to be that guy that drops the buzzword, but I just did. Really, really amazing. I think we're seeing some really cool stuff. As I was mentioning, HP we even periscoped in Mexico. There was a creator, David Lopez. He was dressed up as a luchador, and he would basically use the tablet to kind of knock some guys out in the ring. It was kind of amazing. But he periscoped that whole thing, and that was kind of like the BTS to the commercial. So they're basically creating content on the way to the campaign, which is pretty amazing. And then also we're seeing that live and interactive piece as well. So we have creators utilizing Twitter polls or utilizing Periscope or Snapchat and basically asking consumers like, what should I wear? What should I eat? What should I do? Things like that, and really getting the consumer invested in the content and excited about the content, which is super exciting.
Yeah, we're going to have more on live later today when we talk about You Now and Paula comes up. So I agree. That's an amazing, amazing experience. Lots of new things you can do.
I think
Other
we
questions?
have one down here, too.
Over there. Good.
Sam.
Okay, so when you work for a big company, like a Nike or somebody like that, which I work for a big company, social makes people very nervous. And so when I read this thing that says the creative at the speed of conversation, that is something that is super difficult to achieve when you're in a big company. So one of the things I would love to know is either at Nike or, I mean, Twitter is younger, but is what are those things, like how do you put that trust in place with the broader team? Like, are there like documents you use for guidance, or like, I feel like everyone can read the brand guidelines 15 times and still like do the wrong thing. And the example that I always think about is the one from the Super Bowl with Oreo, right? Where they like reacted so quickly and it was awesome. I feel like we have a really hard time getting there. So how do we get there?
Great question, and that's always a challenge. So at Nike in particular, like we had a playbook for our category. We also had a playbook for digital as a whole, and basically how Nike is using social media, and we basically, as a category, adapt to that with best practices. And then in terms of like moving very quickly to reactives, like for example, FIFA with the Ballon d'Or, like who's the winner of that? Nike Sportswear had a point of view on that. We had content queued up, ready to go. Basically, we have like if A, if B, if C, all that content is pre-approved all the way up to our VP, and they know like, cool, depending on which scenario it's going to be, we have this content ready to roll. So we are being reactive, but we're also planning for it in advance.
I always think of that moment with Samsung at, was it the Oscars a couple years ago, where Ellen took the selfie and everyone said, oh my gosh, like great reactive moment. Okay, Samsung spent, I think, $20 million or so, and also was ready, right? They did all the prep. They ran every scenario. They knew every possibility. And I think, you know, it's just as much good preparation and good understanding of what all the outcomes could be as it is just that stroke of luck and that moment of lightning, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you don't need to be reactive to every scenario necessarily. You just basically want to pick the ones that are on strategy for your brand. I mean, I think like the black and blue dress, gold dress, you know, you see brands coming out of the woodwork just trying to jump in on that conversation, and like they don't need to. It's if it's not on strategy for your brand, don't be a part of it. Like at Nike, we were very specific with the things that we wanted to speak about, and we didn't need to kind of claw for relevancy.